Let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Chad Chester. Chad, are you there? I see him on my attendee list. I don't know if he can hear us or not.
Check, make sure. What's Chad's last name?
Chester.
Chester.
Play recording packets.
Yep.
He's texting me now. He said he's there, but for some reason we don't hear him. Anyhow, Chad's there. Marcus Creasy. Anybody see?
Promote Chad. Okay.
Hey, Tyler.
Is that Chad?
Yes, Tyler, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Chad.
All right, I'm here.
Okay, Chad Chester. Marcus Creasy.
We just promoted Chad. Patrick tells us.
Okay. Yes. Dr. Bill Hewitt.
I am here.
Bruce Malik.
Tyler, I'm here, and I've just pulled into my office, so I'm from my truck into the office. So I may go off and then come straight back on.
Hey, Dr. Pallone, I see you in attendance.
Here.
Dr. Sarah Throne.
Here.
See Tommy Wren. I'm impressed by his dress today. He's got Dan Wright.
Dan Wright's here.
All right, so it looks like we do have a quorum. Just missing Marcus.
Recording
Creek.
in progress.
And Patrick, do we need to do any other introductions, or do we want to skip that?
We can call around the room, see all the staff that's here.
Okay, I'll let you do that.
We'll start with Andrew.
Andrea Collum, Livestock and Poultry, Livestock Supervisor.
RT, Livestock and Poultry Supervisor. Blake Walters, Department of Ag.
Sherry Ellis, Department of Ag.
Charlotte Fuller, Department of Ag. Kevin Simmons, Department of Ag.
And that rounds up the rest with me.
Okay. First action item is to consider the minutes from the January 11th, 2024 Livestock and Poultry Commission meeting. You guys have received those in your email. Let you look over those, but if anybody's ready, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Dan Wright.
Second, Bill Hewitt.
Motion's been made by Dan Wright, second by Bill Hewitt. If no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None observed. So next item would be the minutes of the March 22nd, 2024 meeting, a special called meeting. Entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make the motion. Chad Chester.
Motion been made by Chad Chester. To hear a second.
Second from Dan Wright.
Dan Wright on the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None observed. So we'll move into consideration to adopt rules on the veterinary technician specialist rule. I guess I turn this over to Dr. Bill Hewitt.
No, it's going to be me, Tyler.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Patrick.
All right, thank you, sir. Previously, in January, the commission had approved 5 different rules. 2 of those rules were based off of statutory changes, some cleanup, and that was the Arkansas Egg Marketing Act and the Poultry Registration Feeding Operation Program. 3 new rules or new laws were passed also in the 2023 session. That is the veterinary tech specialist, veterinarian medical license and certification fees, and the veterinary medical license and certification renewal. Those were unanimously approved, like I say, in January. The reason why we're here today is because a part of the proclamation process, we have to go through a 30-day comment period, which that period went from February 18th to March 18th. We received 9 different comments from 4 people. And then we had a public hearing on March 15th where we had no comments on that day. So I'll go through those comments. Just kind of, I sent everyone the actual comments and letters that were sent in to us. And then what I did is I summarized those and give a response. It'll be my response on each one of those questions. So I'll go through that as well. The next step in the process would be once I present each one of these rules, and I'll just go through each one individually, the commission will make a determination whether there is significant changes that are based off of the comments that were submitted. And if we do that, there's one or two options before us today. If we do find that there are substantive changes, we'll need to make those changes today. And then we'll have to start the process all over again. So it'll go through governor's office, it'll go through VLR, and it'll go through another 30-day comment, and then back to us to review the comments that were made on the changes that we made. Or we could just vote to accept the rules as they're written and have that go before ALC in the next time we meet. So what I'll do is I'll go through each one of the rules and I'll ask for a motion, a second, and a vote. And like I say, give you the synopsis or review and opinion of me and the department. All right, so I'm going to start off with going through the agenda. Start with the veterinary technical specialist rule. Well, I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and get the comments.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'm going to go through the comment response form that I sent you guys. The first comment by Courtney Shear was not substantive because she was concerned about a mistake of the definition between CVT and VTS. However, that was in a memo. That was not in the rule itself. So we just kind of sidebarred that one. Next comment would be from Maggie Milligan. She's the one that sent it in care of Dr. O'Neill, who sent a letter from Arkansas Veterinary Medical Association. Two comments there, one on the continue education and the other on the vet tech. Comment number one is that she was concerned that there wasn't any more details about the 8 hours of additional education. That is addressed in the rule itself under 19-101-310 under section 3D1. That is actually in the law itself, and we just didn't see a need for it to be actually in the rule. Next three comments, she made a statement that the VTS needs to be approved by the state and in good standings. Anyone applying should have a good record with the state. We do vet those, we do assure those. In the rule itself, it does state that that has to be a Arkansas license. Next would be they wanted more clarity on the practice agreement and what it should say. That's going to refer to in the law 17-101-320 under the collaborative agreement, practice agreement. State does not get involved in contractual agreements between one party or the other. That is where they are required to submit that practice act to us, and then we can review that. But we just don't feel like as a state agency that we need to get involved in what is in those contracts. Again, that's an agreement between an employer and employee, and it should remain at that. And they also wanted some clarity on the VTS can establish a preliminary VCPR. We went through this on several different versions of the law and the rule, and there was quite a bit of debate on that. And again, that's going to be under the collaborative agreement under 17-101-320. And the intent here is to set up a temporary VCPR, not a full VCPR. This is just to handle any kind of emergency that might come about, or where the veterinarian cannot get out to that particular client. They have 15 days to comply. The veterinarian needs to set up that actual VC PR immediately within 15 days. Other than that, if it goes 20 days, then it's not a valid VCPR. Next comment was from Meg Harrington. Same comment as prior on the continuing education. The 8 hours was not included in the rule. Her second comment was she wanted to establish an actual template for the practice agreement. Again, we don't get into what those agreements say or do not say. And that last comment is from Rachel Cole in care of Dr. Donlin, who sent a letter. Her comments were based off the veterinary technician rule, and she was concerned about the right to conduct certain practices that are not required by or not allowed by a VTS. That is also in the Arkansas Veterinary Medical Practice Act. What a veterinary technician cannot do, what a veterinarian cannot do. That's already been established in law. Next would be also is required, her had another comment about the practice agreement. And then she also takes issues with the words diagnosis and prognosis. That is in the bill under 17-101-320. It does give that, refer to that language. Again, this is in what they can do based on the requirement, the practice act that they have or the agreement they have between the veterinarian. The veterinarian is the sole proprietor of the business. He is the one that's responsible for any actions that the tech may take. So it's solely his responsibility if someone does something that's against the Arkansas Veterinary Medical Practice Act. Okay, now.
Patrick,
Yes.
I do have a question on one of those comments. Is this the appropriate time to ask that?
It would be perfect time.
Okay. On the letter that came from the AVMA, the one from Janet Donlin, care of Rachel Cole, the second paragraph specifically calls out, because of the National Association of Veterinary Technicians in America, the NAFTA Committee on Veterinary Specialists only specifies a VTS in a particular area of practice. It's imperative that the regulations limit activities of VTS only to those appropriate for their specialty. So I realize that the Practice Act talks about what veterinary technicians are allowed to do. Does it specifically address relative to their specialty area as a specialist?
Yes, I believe it does. I do not know where that's at, but if you also look in the continuing education requirements in the bill or the rule, it requires that they take the 8 additional hours for their specific field.
Right, but they could take the CE in their specific field, but I just wanted to make sure that we specify that what they're practicing is only in their field. And I struggled to see that part, and I may have just missed it.
Right. I just have to do some research on that, Sarah.
Dr. Palone, did you, or Dr. Hewitt, did you happen to, or others on the committee?
I did not see anything specific to the practice for the VTS. So we probably should look at that.
I think that's a valid concern that AVMA has. At least we should research and make sure that it's clear in the rule.
So Sarah, a question about that. When you talk about area of specialty, are we talking about like large animal versus small animal, or are we talking about ophthalmology versus cardiology type deal?
So the veterinary technician specialist have areas of specialty, such as large animal. I haven't researched all of the different ones, but yes, they are given their specialist in a specific area, not just as a general specialist that gives them the carte blanche to do everything.
And
but I guess my point was, if you're going to be a VTS, I think that it's going to be mostly large animal in the state. Is that not correct?
Probably not.
I
Probably
don't
not.
think we'd want to make that assumption.
Okay. All right.
The way I understand it is, again, these are so specialized to where even large animal, so if you want to do equine work, you have to be specialized in equine. If you want to
Yes.
do production medicine, you have to be specialized in production medicine. Small animals the same way, and surgery is even different. And there's really no overlap. If you want to get your specialty in the other field, then you have to go back and get specialized in that other specialty. So
And
it's,
then you'd have to get your CE in each of those two areas if that's what you wanted.
right.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Bruce.
You're muted. I had there were questions by a couple of different ones about wanting, a sample collaborative practice agreement. And I agree with what Patrick commented. The statute itself has certain things that it has to require, but we were provided a sample template. Is that something that the state provided, or did one of the commenters submit that as a example template?
That was from Meg Harrington, and I believe she took that example from Tennessee.
Okay. So I knew it was in our materials, but and I agree that, we don't get into the details of the contract as long as they meet the requirements of the statute.
Any other comments for Patrick?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go straight to that vet tech rule then, with that comment made. And my suggestion was going to be merely that we vote to accept the rule as it's written, based off of the comments that I didn't think were substantive. However, I'm gonna defer to Sarah on this. Is there language that you want to change? Do you want to defer and hold this for a later date? What is your wish there for research and clarification?
I would like clarification. I think the point that the AVMA makes in their comment is a valid point relative to the rule and the law, that we need to make sure that we are not opening our rule up too large, and that we do make sure that we keep the veterinary technician specialist within their specialty.
I'll need a motion.
And that would be in the rule, correct? Or is that?
That's what's, yes, there's no, the debate is solely will be on the rule, not the law itself.
Yep.
That would require a legislative change.
So do you need a motion that we research that?
I need a motion to when we're going to vote on this for sure. If we want to hold this for a later date for research, or change the language, one of the two.
I would move that we would do additional research on the veterinary technician specialist rule prior to acting, specifically ensuring that we address that specifically addressing that the veterinary technician specialist are only approved to practice in their particular area of specialty.
And I will add that we're trying to get this done by April 15th. So we may need to have another meeting between now and April 15th to address that.
Okay.
What defines their specialty?
There is a association, just governing body that defines that. I'm trying to think of the name of it, and it's blanking on me right now.
Is it that, or is it just the CE they have to do?
No, it's a
preliminary training and all the research projects that they had to submit to get approval to become a VTS. So there's quite a process of approval that takes years, and all of their research papers and all of the case studies and everything that they have to submit has to be in their field of specialty.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is, so a veterinary technician then starts at this academy to become a veterinary technologist specialist, and I've got a question on the wordage of technician specialist and technologist specialist too. I was under the impression that you had to have a bachelor's degree before you could do that. And maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't think a veterinary technician with a 2-year degree could even apply.
I was
But
thinking that was the difference in a technician versus a technologist, but they could have both applied. One just had a 2-year degree and one had a 4-year degree, but
That's correct. Additional training.
okay.
But it's the Specialty Academy approved by the Committee on Veterinary Technician Specialists of the National Association of Veterinary Technicians of America.
Okay. And so we're saying in the Practice Act, it does not specify that a VTS has to practice in their
No.
given specialty.
I'm sure it does. I
Yeah.
just don't know where it's at.
Okay. Well,
Without
somebody
having to read-
research that
read
during
this
this
whole thing.
meeting or? toward
Yeah,
don't
we
have to
could
meet
hold this
again?
until later on in
Yeah, hell,
after
I'll
the
read
meeting
through
and
it.
give us time to look at it
Yeah.
so we can maybe come to.
Let's research it at this,
today.
yeah, let's do that.
I will get someone on that right now.
So there's been we've got a motion on the floor that we need to address, I believe.
Tyler,
Correct.
I would withdraw my motion while we do additional research if we can hold this to later in the meeting.
All right. So, all right, motion's been withdrawn. Patrick, do you want to move to the next rule?
Yes, sir. Next rule on the agenda will be the fee, the vet fee. There were no comments on this during any of the comment period. So I would just recommend that we accept the rules as written.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Dr. Pallone, is that right?
Dr. Plum seconded.
I made
Okay.
the motion, Tyler.
So that's Tommy Wren. It's kind of hard. Is that Tommy on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Tommy Wren on the motion, Dr. Pallone on the second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None observed. Move down to the continuing education requirements for veterinary medical license.
2 comments on that, and both comments were referring to the 8 additional hours were not mentioned in the rule. Again, that is in state code and statute in the law, and we just thought that felt like it would be better in the law as opposed to in the rule. So my recommendation would be accept the rule as written based off comments are not substantive.
I'll make that motion.
Is that Dr. Pallone?
Here's Tommy, Tyler.
Oh, it's Tommy. Okay, Tommy Wren on the motion. To hear a second.
I'll second. Chad Chester.
Ed Chester on the second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, let's move into the egg marketing rule.
All right, egg marketing rule again was another amendment to the sitting law in 2023. No comments were made during that period, so my recommendation would be to accept the rule as previously voted on.
Motion to accept the rule, Dan Wright.
I second.
Motion's been made by Dan Wright, second by Bruce Mallett. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. So, all right. So now moving to the rules governing poultry feeding operations.
All right, same here. Again, amendment changes in the 23 session. No comments made during the comment period. Recommend that we accept this rule as previously voted on.
Motion to approve, Dan Wright.
Second, Bill Hewitt.
All right, motion's been made by Dan Wright, second by Bill Hewitt. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? None observed. So we'll move into our reviewing the agency reports, accounting, Anusa.
Tyler, can I ask one question? We have someone that needs to leave, Dr. Poole. He's got to leave pretty quick. Can we request that he gets moved up on top of the list or get his report?
Go ahead, Dr. Pula.
Thank you all for the opportunity. I just wanted to briefly give you an update on the lab operations over the last quarter. In time, I'll summarize the information that I shared with you all in our report. Over the past few months, two previously known viruses have caused major concerns in poultry and dairy communities across the country. One avian pneumovirus, whose subtype C is endemic in the United States, has caused various upper respiratory and reproductive diseases in poultry through the new subtypes A and B, which had not been seen until recently. I am pleased to announce that we here at AVDL now offer two new tests, one ELISA and one PCR, to test for these subtypes. And we are offering this in collaboration with the UFA Fayetteville Laboratory, where they are offering ELISA immunoassay tests. And I want to take this moment to recognize the efforts that have been put into, especially by Dr. Moore, Randy Moore and his group, and Jamie Carroll, and who's our technical leader, and Scarlett Daniels, who's our serology supervisor, who have worked diligently in getting these methods online in just a few weeks, ever since we had the notification from USDA. In addition to this virus, another virus that has resulted in some major causes of concern is avian influenza, highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, has been found in dairy cattle. It's been found to cause a sudden drop in feed intake and milk production. And APHIS confirmed that it is H5N1 form of this virus that's causing these illnesses. And I just want to share with you all that laboratory is prepared to assist in testing any of the samples if necessary. The other issue that I want to discuss with you all is regarding the porcine brucellosis. Northern National Animal Health Laboratory Network recently changed their standard operating protocol guidelines and is requesting us to screen serum samples using BAPA antigen only. We have so far been testing them with card testing, and now we are required to do only BAPA and send any samples that are non-negative to NVSL for further confirmation. This is just for swine samples. I just want to bring this to your attention, especially in light of upcoming state fair seasons, jackpot season, etc. The BAPA antigen test requires a higher volume of serum sample. We have so far worked with 30 microliters. From now on, we'll need as much as we can get. Our request so far has been for a milliliter of serum, so any assistance we can get. We are working with Dr. Niles on sending out some information, actual information to all of our veterinarians regarding this change, as well as the need of additional sample. We have so far received just 8 horses from related to the Oaklawn racing. This is in fourth quarter. This is about half the number of necropsies that we received during the last season. It's a remarkable change, improvement in practices. And I also want to share a trend that we have noticed over the last quarter is a steep increase in the number of requests for trick samples in Q1 of 24 compared to Q1 of 23, where this past quarter we tested about 16 samples compared to 453 from the similar time period in 2023. This is an indicator of increased participation due to efficiency and simplicity of the process. Thank you.
I have a question, Doc.
Yes, sir.
If we're suspecting the avian influenza in dairy cattle, it's a nasal swab, or what do we send you?
So the advice is for either milk or nasal swabs.
Okay,
So whichever is easy to send it to us, and we have methods for both of these processes, and we associate their SOPs with us, and we are happy to test that.
sure, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Pula, for your report. Are we ready now to move into accounting?
Yes, I believe so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members. On the accounting report, not a whole lot to report for this reporting period. As you can see, we start the fiscal year with 13 million cash on hand. Between July and March, we reported a little bit over 10 million in revenues. Our expenditures for this reporting period total around a little bit over 8.4 million. So we finished the third quarter with 14,674,000 cash on hand, which is a good position to be in going into the last quarter of the fiscal year. So overall, the division is looking pretty good on the finances. And that concludes the financial report.
All right. Do we need to vote on this, Patrick? I can't remember.
Yes, I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay. Do you hear a motion to approve the financial report?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion
I'll
made by
second it.
Tommy Wren, second by Bill Hewitt. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None observed. Okay, Dr. Niles.
I believe Dr. Moffitt is going to report that. He's actually researching this. So if we could move to the next one, please.
All right, Miss Egg and Poultry, Miss Sherry Ellis.
Good afternoon. I'm just gonna hit a few high points this afternoon. Arch Farms out of Summers, which was formerly Pete and Jerry's, has reestablished grading services with us. They're back to 5 days a week. We've received several commodity contract awards this quarter. It's keeping us very busy. We completed 20 food defense audits this quarter, 1 child nutrition audit, 1 cage-free verification audit, and 3 contractor check loading surveillance inspections and 10 shell egg surveillance inspections this quarter. At processing locations, we did 201 million pounds of chicken, and that was only on a 2-month period because we moved this up this quarter. We did not have March included in this. We'll have it in the next meeting. 147 million pounds of turkey, 4,000 pounds of rabbit, and 753,000 30 dozen cases of shell eggs. At retail, we inspected 463 retail locations. We did 75,000 dozen shell eggs there, and we had 1 warning issued for failure to meet refrigeration requirements, and placed 165 dozen cartons on stop sale for failure to meet refrigeration. All of that went back to the processor and was destroyed. And we did outreach this quarter. We went to Harbor High School in Springdale and taught 2 different agri courses on how to grade at production facilities, and had a whole bunch of turkeys there for them to look at. So that's all we had.
Thank you, Miss Sherry. Livestock Field Markets, Blake.
Good afternoon, everyone. Got a few quick things here. I did want to go over, like always, I included the market totals in your packet, just if you want to see what's going on at the markets. As everybody knows, prices have been pretty good, so you definitely can see it. We were down a little bit from last year in January, but it made up for it in February. That was almost double what we had last February, running through the markets, and kind of basing it off adult cattle versus calves there, you probably had roughly 10 to 12,000 adult age animals going through. And then, so that other part that's about that, how many calves ran through. So that's pretty good for a month's total there, pretty good amount. And then March was pretty close to what we had year prior. I know the market's cooled a little bit, but there's several factors in that too. And we're obviously, a lot of the good cattle went in February. So some of the stuff we're seeing is not the quality, but, definitely appreciating those good prices. I know the farmers are. I include the flea market report. I'm not really gonna go over anything on that. I'm just kind of trying to keep you abreast of the situation on that, because there is a lot of table eggs and things and backyard chickens running through those, and definitely, that keeps us busy on that, even though the numbers may not look that big. There's a lot of work goes into trying to control some of those, swap meets and things of that nature. I did want to touch base. Spring's been very busy. We do a lot of outreach during that time period. We just did the 9 area spring conferences with cattlemen's associations. Those went really good. We actually had a booth at all those, and was able to do work in conjunction with Checkoff, and promoted the EID tags and did a lot of that, made a lot of good contacts, had a lot of good feedback on that. We got a lot of people that are wanting to get into that, especially if they're doing the calf foot vaccinations, and was able to touch base with some veterinarians also that we're able to, several of them have gotten readers from us because we're able to loan those out and do the tags too. So that worked out really well. And I'm just gonna list off several things we've been to, just so if you want to touch base back with us on that. But obviously we had a booth at VMA. We participated in LMA. We've been to the Women in Ag Conference, Arkansas Grown. We hosted the ACLC group here at which is it used to be Young Cattlemen's Leadership Class. Now it's the Arkansas Cattlemen's Leadership Class through ACA. They came by and we did a demo on the EID tag, talk about some current issues of foreign animal disease and some things like that. So that went really well. We're starting to get some requests from different FFA chapters and 4-H groups. We've done several. I know we've done several local ones, but then also some of the counties. I know White County recently had a in-service day for their youth, and we were able to do that, talk about animal disease and some of the exhibition requirements and all that good stuff. Obviously now exhibition cranking up, Coggins are really coming up in the numbers. We had PBR a few weeks ago, checked all the bulls there. That went really well. PRCA is coming up. Rock Bottom is starting next week. 22nd. Rock Bottom's having their chuck wagon race up in Harrison. That one's growing, getting pretty big. Just a lot of things going on. Of course, 4 states is booked nearly every weekend with some kind of exhibition. So we're busy checking on that and working on that. You know how it is, it flips. When cattle prices go up, obviously there's the sector that's going to market a lot, but we are getting a lot of requests for vaccinations, and probably veterinarians are too, because then you got the other side that's wanting to keep the replacement heifers and do some pairs and all that kind of stuff. So we are getting some requests, more than I expected with the prices being so good for vaccination. So we're excited about that, and then getting a lot back from the veterinarians too. And then one thing that's been kind of surprising, but a lot of people are it goes in and out, but we have had a lot of requests to bleed hogs to sell it to market. So we're getting several sellout requests and smash herd requests. Trying to hurry here, but just a couple more things at the end of the month. We're finally wrapping up the CO2 depop trailer that we've been building on for a while now. We're planning to do that exercise with JBS at the end of the month. So we're hoping all that goes well. And hopefully get that wrapped up. That was through a grant through USDA to get prepared for African swine fever. And then some other things we got lined up. It's time because a lot of people's stuff's run out. So we're trying to line up BQA, PQA, all that kind of stuff coming up to get all the inspectors back in that kind of thing. We got several other trainings too. We're going to be hopefully having some industry training too. So everybody's up kind of on what the industry is doing now as far as numbers and things like that, whether it be poultry or swine and all that. So I'll be visiting with some of those folks. Then just the normal, obviously coming out of winter, we had a lot of disposal calls, and now we're getting some Coggins check calls and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. So anybody got any questions or anything?
Thank you, Blake. Move down to the meat inspection program. Tillman.
Yeah, so can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, good deal. Well, since I spoke to y'all last in January, we've actually added on 2 more facilities. That's brought us up to 8 that have the grant of inspection. 7 of those are very, very active in using them. A couple of them are using 2 or 3 days a week, and I've actually got 3 written requests from 3 separate ones that are wanting to go into daily inspection. So that's something we're going to be working towards getting fulfilled for them. We've also had 7 investigations that we've had to conduct. 4 of them were complaints made against meat processors. The other 3 were investigations into firms that produce products that contain meat. We're in the process of getting those completely wrapped up right now. We're still working on our custom exempt reviews as time allows between the inspection activities and looking into these investigations. One of our inspectors actually attended an event at Arkansas Tech on the 2nd. They had a career panel there. There was actually a lot of people across the agriculture industry that were there, and it was a career panel for the students to get to ask questions and try to figure out exactly what they wanted to do with their degrees when they were done. And we actually had quite a few that were interested into looking into Department of Ag. So, but on the inspection side of things, in this fiscal quarter that we just ended, we had 87,470 pounds of beef, 17,163 pounds of pork, and 565 pounds of lamb that was processed and entered into commerce. That totaled out at 105,198 pounds. Then on the checkoff side, we also attended all of the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association regional meetings. We got to make good contact with a lot of producers and got the chance to explain what exactly is going on with their checkoff dollar, where that's going, and how that's being used to help them. Let's see. We've got our funding. Well, it's open for people to be able to put in for their funding for research and projects. Of course, I've got the deadlines down there, April 22nd for research projects and April 26th for funding, project funding. Those, of course, will all be seen on May the 29th at the checkoff meeting. And of course, I've got several dates down there on different things that we're going to be attending here in the next couple of months. And that, of course, those are just the highlights of it. There are several there where we're going to be going to schools and different outreach, youth ag days and things of that nature. But that's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions or anything for me.
Tillman, just a kind of a clarification, the
Yes.
amount of pounds of beef and pork that were inspected, is that just for the quarter, or is that a cumulative for 3 quarters?
That is just for that 1 quarter.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. If nothing else for Tillman, we'll move down to NPIP with Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Provided the report for our numbers for the quarter there. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Just a brief NPIP report. The focus for the quarter was to catch up on inspections and paper audits. Like I said, we had to pause those for the last 2 months of 2023 due to HIPAP and our response to that. So we put a real emphasis on trying to get those caught back up. You can see there on the company inspections, I completed 4 company inspections, which got us all current at this time. Processing plants, there were 3 completed, and those are all current as well. We wrapped up our 2023 hatchery inspections and have now moved on to 2024. Those have started. All of our commercial table egg company inspections are current at this time. Really put a focus on getting those biosecurity audits updated. Completed 14 of those during the quarter. And all of our lab audits, I completed 2 of those during the quarter, and all of those are current at this time as well. Just an update on form typhoid antigen. It's kind of been scarce getting hands on that. It's been backordered, unfortunately, for quite some time, going back into last summer. They did have a product available late last year. We were able to get our hands on 15 of the 14 mil bottles. So we are good with our stock that we have here for our LSIs to do our inspections. Some of the private testers out in the state were able to get their hands on some. They had orders in place, and so they do have. There is antigen out there that's current and in date. So from the company, they have two volumes of antigen, a 14 mil bottle and a 40 mil bottle. The update from the company is that they're supposed to be shipping the 40 mil bottles this month and should have 14 mil bottles by late May. And then just an update on our PT schools coming up. They'll all be in the month of May. You can see the 3 locations, Fayetteville, Batesville, and Little Rock. We will have a commercial and a private tester school at each location, and you can see the dates there. And that will complete my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Kevin? We sure appreciate your report. Is Dr. Moffitt ready, Patrick?
Yes, I am.
Okay, floor is yours, Dr. Moffitt.
All right, thank you. All right, so first off, the administrative section, we have the VMLRP, which is the Veterinary Medical Loan Repayment Program. That is going to close this Friday on the 12th. We have been working with the enforcement officers on some equine cases in Van Buren and in Hot Springs. Those are starting to kind of wrap up. Moving down to emergency preparedness and response, I went to a meeting at University of Missouri about African swine fever, foot and mouth, and swine producer response. And we've joined with Missouri, and they are coming here to do 2 of those courses with our swine producers. We have worked through all the Arkansas commercial premises for high path avian influenza. They are all completed all the steps for free status at the moment. And then moving down to in diseases, we do have a few active trick cases. As Dr. Pula mentioned, we have the avian metapneumovirus and then the high path H5N1 in dairy cattle. It is in Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, Michigan, Idaho, and Ohio. It is a wild bird origin, and there is some cow to cow transfer with that. And we are enforcing movements restrictions into Arkansas for no dairy cattle exhibiting clinical signs and testing positive for high path avian influenza will be allowed to move into the state. And then anything from a cattle herd with HPAI will be required permitting and may require pre-movement testing. And as he mentioned earlier, I think he was asked a question on the pre-movement testing or the testing. It is milk or a naso swab. And then it has only been found in lactating animals, but they have all been multiple different varieties of the milking groups. And majority of the states do have some form of restrictions. And then the best place to find those restrictions are interstatelivestock.com. And you can see the restrictions if things are moving from out of state to another state. We are pushing really strongly for biosecurity measures in our dairy herds and as well as with our avian flocks. And that is the end of my report if you don't have any questions.
Dr. Moffitt, this is Tommy Wren. I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I've had several cattle producers, north central Arkansas, that are not able to get Covexin 9 blackleg with debt. Do we know the reason why that's so hard to get right now?
No, I do not know specifically on that one. I do know that in the past, my experience in the past working in mixed animal practice that those do wax and wane on their availability pretty frequently. And there has been periods in the past where we weren't able to get that, and then they come available.
I think there's
Dr. Palone might have a better answer for that one.
I think there's
Cavalry 9 has tetanus in it too.
Yeah.
The maker of that vaccine is limited, I think, on who manufactures it, so it gets backed up.
Evidently very difficult to stabilize the tetanus in that mix, but Cavalry 9, we got some just the other day, so we're gonna try that, and it has the tetanus toxoid in it too.
Yeah. My experience, I've used both of those kind of intermittently. Whenever one wasn't available, I'd switch to the other and back and forth.
Well, it was just that one particular product. It was that Covexin 9, so I wasn't sure, but I told him I'd ask.
When you get CDT pretty readily too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to vaccinate with the CDT along with an 8-way would be fine too.
Hey, Dr. Moffitt, this is Bill Hewitt. I'd like to make a comment about the high path in dairy cattle. I just wanted to let you know that there has been a dairy herd in the humongous dairy state of North Carolina that is under quarantine for high path flu. So I guess my point is, most of the states that you've mentioned are fairly significant dairy producing states, but even the small ones like North Carolina and God forbid Arkansas could potentially become or could have herds that are infected. So I just want to throw that out there. This is a very real threat to our business, to the chicken business.
Thank you.
How many operating dairies do we have in the state right now?
30.
And these cattle are clinical, correct?
Most of them are testing. There are some subclinical positives that they have found in some of those herds. The clinical signs are, I don't know if I mentioned what the clinical signs are to even watch for. Decreased production, acute drop in production, that's milk production. And then severely impacted ones of those have thickened colostrum-like milk. They do go off feed typically. You will probably see decreased rumination if you're watching for that. There has been reports of abnormally tacky or loose feces. Some are lethargic, some are dehydrated, and some do have fever.
No mortality that we know of at this point, and
I believe it's up to about 10% morbidity in the herd.
I believe you're right.
Yep. And from what we understand, there's about a 14 to 21 day period in which they may shed that virus or pass it through, and they start recovering up to that point.
There has been one human case in Texas, and that was conjunctivitis. That was linked to one of those dairy herds.
And from what we understand, Dr. Moffitt, that the potential of it being very localized to where the virus entered the body is kind of where it's staying. Is that correct?
Yes. It has been associated with mammary tissue in cattle. For the most part, they are not isolating it in other tissues as readily.
All right. Do we, does that cover Dr. Niles' report as well, Patrick?
That is Dr. Niles' report.
Make sure we got that all covered, but we do not have any active high path cases in the state currently, correct?
We do not. We have one backyard that will be closing on April 12th.
Great.
That's our last thing.
No dairy cases.
No dairy cases.
So I'd like to make a comment. You called it high path, and that is the same virus as high path.
Yes.
In chickens as we're seeing in dairy cattle. But I think there's going to be some communications out here in the next couple of days or weeks where actually the Association of Bovine Practitioners are trying to come up with a different name to call it so that it doesn't have any connotations to poultry and have any issues with trade. So from a selfish perspective, I would ask that you guys, once the new name has been coined, to please use that and not high path avian influenza in cattle.
Yes, we can.
All right. That's noted, Dr. Hewitt.
Thank you.
Patrick, do we have any, are we ready for the rule or do we want to move on to something else?
I'm actually ready.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right, Dr. Thone, thank you for the challenge. I appreciate that. Looks like I had sent you the statute that we found under 17-101 through 19. I think what you're asking is that the rules state that the VTS stay within the practice of their specialty. The section that we found states a veterinary technician specialist shall perform specialized veterinary technology under the direction of supervision of the responsibility of the licensed veterinarian to whom he or she is employed or collaborative veterinarian collaborating under the veterinarian collaborative practice agreement. Now I'll let legal step in here, but in my mind, what I'm looking at is, and we haven't found a statement that requires that VTS to stay within their own specialty. I would think that that's going to require a rule or law change and not a rule change. If we put it in a rule, then you're making the rule more restrictive than the law itself, or you're adding language in the rule that's not existent in the law. So I'm not sure that we can go forward with a statement that says that specialty or that tech has to stay within their own specialty. Corey, Tanner, would y'all agree with that, or am I out of bounds?
Miss Corey, give me just a second.
Okay.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
This is Bruce, and I pulled up the law while we were here on my other screen, and you know, the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of detail there. But then in the rule that we've got before us, to get certified to start with, it does state that they've got to complete the formal process of education, training, experience, and testing through a specialty academy approved by the committee. And now that's where Dr. Throne, Dr. Hewitt, Dr. Pallone, they may know more about the details of what those different specialties are. So we're almost saying to get the license to start with, they may just have a specialty in a certain area. And then I think Dr. Throne's question is, you know, if that's what their certification is in, that's what their practice needs to be limited to as far as being a specialist. Is that correct, Dr. Throne? Your issue? You're on mute. Yep.
Luckily, it puts up a big thing and tells you you're on mute now. I think that's my concern. And I think, because I think what AVMA brought up was a very valid concern, is you could have a veterinary technician specialist in area X, have a collaborative practice agreement, not necessarily have a veterinarian that's there all the time. What's preventing you from lead over into other areas that you're not necessarily have that specialty in? And some of that is going to be just, you know, being a licensed professional and doing things that you're supposed to be, just as we would ask any other professional. But I did think it was a very valid concern of just making sure that we're calling that out, that you don't get a veterinary technician specialist license and can do all of those areas. It needs to be restricted to your academy.
This is Corey. From the statute that I get, Patrick's got a copy there in the office. law, the statute that was passed by the legislature does seem to suggest that the veterinary technician specialist performs the specialized practice under the direction, supervision, and responsibility of the vet that employs them, and then goes on to say that the vet is individually responsible and liable for the acts and omissions delegated to the veterinary technician specialist. And I guess the thing that we'll have to reconcile is that we can, the lawyers here can talk about the law, but we don't know anything about being a veterinarian or a VTS versus, so, I mean, we can tell you what we see the law is saying, but with regards to whether the law covers the question, that's where we'll have to, I guess, come together.
So did you say that the law states that VTS practices their specialty, and I'm paraphrasing, as supervised by the veterinarian that they're associated with?
Either the veterinarian that employs them or a collaborating, easy for me to say, collaborating veterinarian under a collaborative practice agreement.
But what does it say about the VTS practices in their specialty? Does it
It says they shall perform specialized veterinary technology under direction, supervision, and responsibility of either the vet or through the CPA.
So that means that they should not perform non-specialized or non-specialty procedures and practices.
And I think you can make that argument, yes.
In addition, the continuing education rule does require an extra 8 hours of continuing education in that vet tech specialist specialization. So if this is voting just on the vet tech specialist rule, the states have completed the formal process of education training experience through a specialty academy. That can have implication there, but the continuing education.
Hey guys, we're catching lots of side conversations. It's really hard to hear.
Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you again, Tanner.
But the continuing education rule does require the 8 extra hours be in that vet tech specialist speciality, so to speak. And that could be a way of continual renewal, but that doesn't, I guess it doesn't have a whole lot of teeth on that. But saying a specialized veterinarian technology training under that statute B1, I would agree with Corey that it does have that implication that there is a speciality in that. Also, there's some implication through the rule when it says completed formal process through a specialty academy, and somebody graduates, from what I understand, with a specialty degree. But again, we're not vet tech specialists, and Corey and I don't know the degree process on that.
I think it's pretty clear their training is supposed to, be specialized. I think the question that comes up with AVMA is that when, I'm just going to use Meg as an example, when Meg is out doing production medicine and the rancher asks her to work on his horse while he's there, and she does so, then that is against the law or the rule, because equine is not in her specialty. And so I think the wordage that Dr. Throne, and correct me, sir, if this is wrong, and what AVMA is saying is that there probably needs to be some direct wordage that they don't step outside of their specialty. they're practicing specialized veterinary technology. But I think from what I've heard from AVMA and people I know is that they're scared that they're going to go get specialized in one area and then practice overlap with other areas. And I think that's the concern that AVMA has.
Yes, I agree. I quite frankly, I think AVMA worded it pretty well in their comment. I get that their CE has to be in there, but I mean, I could be a poultry specialist and say all my licensing is CE is in poultry, but I could still go do something else. So just because that's what you are required to get your CE doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you are going to go and practice in. And I think Dr. Plum summed it up very well. I think our wording in 17-101-319, after hearing AVMA's concerns, is very vague. A veterinary technician specialist shall perform specialized veterinary technology. It doesn't say that specialized veterinary technology that they have to perform has to be directly under their specialist academy certificate. And I'm probably using kind of wrong words there, but I looked at this before and it didn't strike me until you have the comments, which is the purpose of the comments.
None of us practice, so specialized. And so this is new as far as, what a veterinary technician can work, under direct supervision of a veterinarian, can work on any species. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a veterinarian can work on any species. These VTS are so specialized that it is different than anything we've dealt with before.
When we grant a license for a veterinary technician specialist, do we just say they've got a license for that, or do we say a veterinary technician specialist in the area of, or do we put any specifics on that initial certification?
No, the certification will be that they've granted a license to practice that as a technologist. The practice agreement is where the specialties are going to come into play. The agreement that they have with their veterinarian and their continuing education. So the continuing education and the practice agreement is what's going to reflect on how they perform and what they practice with. Does that make sense?
Well, when the collaborative practice agreement comes in, and I know you don't want to put that template out there or to draft a sample one, but is the department going to review that to see if the collaborative practice agreement limits it to their specific specialty?
Yeah, that will be the process of us reviewing that. And then, of course, I don't know if we'll do spot checks or act on complaints. But if there is a complaint, then we'll have to see if they're outside of that field, then they'll be out of compliance. So we'll have that.
I thought when we kind of talked through that collaborative practice agreement that, they would not submit any of that. Really, the only time that the state or the veterinary exam subcommittee would see that is if there was a complaint that would come about that you would investigate, but there probably was not a plan to look at those proactively, but that's my memory from a couple months ago.
In the rule, it states that they have to submit that to the department.
Okay.
So can you go back up to the one that you had highlighted, and I'm way oversimplifying this perhaps, but if it said a avian veterinary technical specialist shall perform specialized veterinary technology in avian species versus an avian veterinary technical specialist shall perform specialized veterinary technology in equine species. I think in my mind, the double mention of specialist in this verbiage means the same specialty.
I think that's inferred, but I think the question is the clarity of it. I mean, we've been arguing this for 20 minutes between 10 people and we can't come to an agreement. So I think it is.
They probably intended it to be that
But,
way.
yeah, right, maybe. But I mean, this is the law,
Yeah,
right? I
well,
mean,
for the, for the
So-
purpose of today,
Yeah.
we need to make a decision on what we want to do with the rule itself. We can't make a change to the law, except for, the next general session. So the discussion would be, is there changes that we want to make to the veterinarian technician specialist rule, or do we vote to approve it as it is?
And if we make a change to the rule, it has to go back before the
The whole-
governor.
The whole process, yes.
And this is Corey again. Don't take this as me trying to prompt the commission to go one way or the other. But I think Patrick alluded to this earlier. The unknown would be if we go through this process, say, okay, no, this is not specific enough. We need to add something in this rule that says in their certified specialty or however it needs to be said, and we go through the process again. And then when it finally gets to go before the legislature, their question is, what's your authority to restrict? Show me in the statute what your authority is to put that extra restriction on it. I use extra restriction kind of as don't take that by specific. You see what I'm saying? What's your authority to say that they have to practice in their specific specialty? Understanding that is the case, but I think that's what Patrick's concern was earlier.
A rule cannot add language to a law or make it more restrictive.
So. And that really limits what we can do. So if that's the case, and we don't want to add more verbiage to the rule that would be stricter than the law, then I'll make a motion to accept the rule as it is.
I second it.
All right, so motion's been made, I believe by Dr. Pallone, second by
Tommy Wren.
To accept the rule as presented. Do we want to have any further discussion?
Ms. Corey, I don't want to belabor the issue, but I will point out that we can easily, as we start getting ready to prepare for next year's session, suggest in our legislative package that this particular statute be clarified a little bit, and probably a lot of them that need to be in that package, but we can certainly include this as one and then modify the rule as we discussed here today.
And that probably should be done. Yeah.
I would definitely recommend that because I think, especially sitting in the veterinary examining board committee, I think that there's going to be a lot of questions as this gets implemented. This could cause us some issues as we work with folks trying to determine their licensure, and if there's a complaint that comes about, this vagueness will cause us issues.
Agreed.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. None opposed. Motion passed. All right, Patrick, the general agency activities.
Okay, no, thank you all for that very healthy debate. I appreciate that. That's what this commission was for. Make sure that we approve good rules. Thank you very much for that. Since that is noted, that we'll get with somebody and see if we can't talk about that in a 25 session. So thanks very much. Okay, as far as agency reports, I think staff did an excellent job on giving pretty much a good picture of what we've done the last quarter. The only thing I would add is our poultry registration program, which the registration period had ended on March 31st. Because of the program being a 20-year-old program where people were going into the district office and handwriting and issuing hard copies, now to go into online, we've had several issues with people trying to adapt to that. So we are not necessarily extending the registration period, but not going to issue any kind of fines for those being late. So we're working with those to try to get those in as much as possible. The industry is being very helpful to get their growers in and to get everybody in compliance. Reg 5 has been submitted, and then pretty much everything is going well. I've been asked to kind of explain maybe some issues, or not issues, but some maybe it's hard to understand between the committee and the commission, which is very complicated to a certain degree. So what I want to explain is what the roles are for both committee and commission. Since the board itself was rolled into the commission has full authority of what the prior veterinarian board had. The law set up and established a committee made up of professionals in that field to give those recommendations, to view those cases, and to suggest whether it's a finding or to drop the case. So that's where we are. However, the law itself also is required that any veterinarian that sits on the commission also sits on the committee, which gives us a little bit of an issue when we come to presenting cases to the commission. When the commission hears a case, and that's the role of the commission, is to promulgate rules and to hear cases and to issue fines or violations. In order to do that, there cannot be any prior information or knowledge of the case. It has to be submitted once the commission is open. You go into dialogue, discuss the case, and then you vote. Anyone having prior knowledge to that must recuse themselves. So that's what we have in the situation with the committee, with the three commissioners that sit on the committee have previous knowledge and information that could sway them one way or the other when it comes to vote. So whomever is at the committee, whether it be all three or just one or two, whoever is at the committee discussing the cases that presented to the commission must recuse themselves. The reason why we want those professionals, and we work with ABMA on the committee, and to have those specific fields, was to have that expertise. So the committee or the commission members that sit on the committee need to provide that information to the commission. So there needs to be a lot of discussion. And that discussion would be coming from the committee members discussing the case and explaining why they came to that conclusion and giving their recommendation so that the commission can have a good look at what the case is outside of their expertise. Today's case, we got two cases today. And because Dr. Pallone was absent during the commission or during the committee meeting, he can provide a vote. He can make recommendations, make a motion, second and vote. Dr. Hewitt and Dr. Throne cannot. They need to recuse themselves because of prior knowledge. However, we need them to give us an overview, or a summary of the case so we can better understand why the committee came to the conclusion that they did. So I want to address one file or one case that was covered in the last commission meeting, and it's case number or docket number 2022-02. This was a case that was presented to the commission, and it was, just give you just a really quick synopsis of it, because this was voted on unanimously, can't talk, and that there was no issues with the recommendation of the committee. So the case was basically a complainant had brought in a pregnant dog that was having some complications during birth. There was a cesarean section performed, and apparently there were some complications during that procedure. The complainant took the dog to another veterinarian where there was further surgery needed in order to address the issue. The view of the committee was that he violated the rule 17-103-101-305, where the surgical procedures included description of the procedure and all the name that was all listed. But there was a violation of let me try to find that exact recommendation. Oh, unprofessional conduct by violation of the rule promulgated by the commission under this chapter, which was 17-101-305. So the recommendation was to for him to get 6 hours of continuing education on top of the 20 hours he's normally required to give, plus 3 medical records per month for the next 6 months. And the commission voted on that unanimously. Why we're having a re-vote on this is because of that issue I referred to before. One of the participants in the voting process seconded the motion that was actually sitting on the committee and reviewing the rules. So to clean this up, to make it clear, we need to have a new motion, a new second, and a new vote. And that would be for all of the commissioners other than those that's sitting on the committee for today, because I believe they're all present in that committee.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made by Tommy Wren.
Dan Wright, second.
Dan Wright on the second. Do we have any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Patrick.
All right, thank you. Hopefully that was clear as mud. All right, we've got the 2 cases that were in the last committee meeting. I'm going to turn this over to either, I think the chair, first of all. Dr. Hewitt, are you prepared to give the summation of those? Okay.
I sure am. And I will say I would appreciate any additional color that Dr. Throne wants to throw in when we talk about the summary. But there were two complaints. The first one alleges violation of the rule of 17-101-305, unprofessional conduct by violation of a rule promulgated by the commission under this chapter. And the second rule that was violated was over-treating patients or charging for services which did not occur unless the services were contracted for in advance, or for services which were not rendered or documented in the patient's record, or charging for services which were not consented to by the owner of the patient or the owner's consent. So to summarize the complaint, the owner of the pet who was on vacation in the area of this clinic took their dog to the clinic at normal hours, normal operating hours, and they were billed for an emergency vet visit in spite of being there at normal hours. After looking at the documentation, the recommendations that were moved and filed and made a motion on to assess or to agree that there were a couple of factors that were left out or that were not done properly when it comes to the patient's records. One of which was perhaps even discrepancies or deficiencies in different sets of records that were provided. And then the other thing would have been that the radiographs that were provided were not labeled properly, which those were pretty cut and dry. And then then the other rule of over-treating patients or charging for services which did not occur is in reference to the emergency, the fee that was charged in normal hours. So I'm sorry, I got out of line. So the recommendation from the committee is that the respondent includes 6 hours of continuing education, 3 of which were in record keeping, and 3 would be in emergency care. These 6 hours are in addition to the previously required 20 hours for license renewal. And then also the respondent will be required to submit 2 emergency triage care medical records per month for a period of 4 months to be reviewed by the committee. So
I can add a little bit of color. Oh, go ahead.
Do. No, please
No, I
do.
was just gonna say, I can add some color commentary specifically to medical records. Dr. Hewitt did mention that the medical records that were submitted by the doctor did not include all of the information that are required. So you need to have the date, the time, the patient's name, all of that has to be included on that medical record. And what he submitted to us did not have that. I think the other thing that was very concerning to us is that when we get these complaints, you have the veterinarian that submits their information, you have the complainant that submits their information. They both had copies of the patient chart. They were printed off on different days and they have different information. So the patient chart that was submitted by the complainant was submitted at the time of discharge, and it was 8/22/23 at 10:44 a.m. It lists the weight of the dog as 36 pounds, but when the veterinarian submitted their response on 11/13 that they printed it off, the patient's weight for the exact same printout was 38.4. And also the temperature, respiration, and pulse were adjusted or were different, I should say, between what was submitted by the complainant and what the veterinarian submitted as part of their medical record. So I think those 2 things were very concerning to us. The other thing was the $450 emergency fee that was during hours and did not appear based on the discussion and the complaint that it wasn't a busy time, the veterinarian wasn't working them in. And it really comes down to did he truly have consent around that on charging that during normal office hours. So that was really the 2 reasons behind citing 17-101-305-11 and 305-15. And so our recommendation around the continuing ed and submitting medical records, we're really trying to line up to those 2 violations that we found.
And yeah, thanks, Sarah, because I participated in the meeting to review these, but not at the previous meeting where these details were covered. And I have to admit, I have a question about the second one. But anyway, we need to vote first. Sorry.
All right.
Any questions?
Can Dr. Hewitt, can you restate the recommendation?
Yes, the recommendation from the committee is to offer a consent agreement to the respondent that includes 6 hours of continuing education. 3 of those hours should be in record keeping, and the other 3 hours should be in emergency care. These 6 hours of CE should be in addition to any other previously assigned CE hours, and in addition to the 20 CE hours required for license renewal. Furthermore, the respondent will also be required to submit 2 emergency triage care medical records per month for a period of 4 months to be reviewed by the committee.
All right. Is everybody clear on what we're voting on?
Is there questions about the case? I'm happy to answer any of those.
I'll make the motion that we accept the recommendation.
Second, Dan Wright.
So motion been made by Chad Chester, second by Dan Wright. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. None opposed, observed. All right, Dr. Hewitt.
So, mention a question. Do you guys have this report in front of you?
Should be on the screen.
It's on the screen?
The 2-page report is on the screen.
Okay, I can't see it. I'm sorry. So I have a question before we go over this. Sarah, you'll have to help me with this. I don't remember the cruelty to animals.
So that's the allegation by the complainant, not our finding.
Oh, okay.
So the first part is when they fill,
I got
when
you.
the
Yeah.
complainant fills out the allegation, they can check whatever boxes
Okay.
that they
Yeah.
want to, and then
You're
we
right.
review the case.
You're right. So the allegations were that cruelty to animals, incompetence, gross negligence, or malpractice. And then the other one was overtreating patients or charging for services which did not occur unless the services were contracted for in advance, or for services which were not rendered or documented in the patient's records, or charging for services which were not consented by the owner of the patient or the owner's agent. So again, Sarah can throw some color in, but the owner of this animal filed the complaint after they had taken their 11-year-old cat for treatment on an emergency basis. The cat was given barium orally, and an X-ray was performed. The X-ray showed a white mass, and the complainant was told it was paper or fluff she accidentally ingested. The animal was kept overnight at the clinic and was discharged the next day. Curo, the animal showed no signs of improvement, so the complainant sought a second opinion, as subsequently diagnosed with an upper respiratory infection. Do you have any more color over that, Sarah?
Yeah, so, we reviewed these on the same day, and they kind of had some similarities between the two. The biggest thing that we found really was under the patient records. Again, those radiographs have to be labeled because they're part of the permanent record. So that was one finding. And then we did find issues around the emergency fee and specifically the consent aspect, because there is some discrepancy. He says he got consent. The owner specifically says that they did not issue consent for that. And so out of that 17-101-305-15, it specifically talks about contracting for those services in advance. And we did not feel that this particular veterinarian got consent before to be able to charge for those things. And that's why this one in particular only includes really the continuing education around consent and client communication, and doesn't include any additional recommendations for submission of medical records.
There are questions for Sarah there? So a motion was made by the committee to present this complaint to the commission, and are for the following violations, as already mentioned: unprofessional conduct by a violation of a rule promulgated by the commission in this chapter, specifically around patient records, and also around the identification and labeling of radiographs. Another complaint was the overtreating of patients, and Sarah mentioned the fees that were charged. So after looking at those, the committee recommended to offer a consent agreement to the respondent that includes 3 hours of continuing education to include client consent and client communication. The 6 hours of continuing education should be in addition to any other previously assigned hours, and in addition to the 20 hours of continuing education that are already required for license renewal.
Just one comment. Let me look back on my notes on something.
And can whoever's controlling the screen scroll it up?
Just for my knowledge,
other way.
There is a typo. It does appear to be. It says the recommendations that offer consent agreement to respondent that includes 3 hours of continuing ed and client communication, and then it says these 6 hours. I bet that's a carryover. That should say 3 hours in both places. The second
Yes,
sentence of what you have highlighted.
It's 3 of each. I can't see the screen, but I think it's 3 of each, right?
No, I have in my notes from our meeting that it was just 3 hours total on this
Okay.
case.
All right.
Dr. Hewitt, just for my knowledge, since I'm not a licensed vet, those continuing education hours, are they online or are they in person somewhere? Just
They
curious.
can be both.
Okay.
The requirement of for the normal 20 hours that are required to renew your license, 10 of them have to be live, live and in person or an interactive webinar. The other 10 hours could be recorded or online. These that we've specifically outlined here don't have a specification as to whether they are live or online.
Thanks. All right, so we've heard the recommendation from the committee, and are we've got the corrections made that we feel comfortable with?
Yeah.
So the bottom line, second sentence should be 3 hours there instead of 6, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'll move that we accept the recommendation of the committee with that correction.
All right, motion's been made. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Got Tommy Wren on the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? None observed. All right, is it all we have, Patrick, for that part?
Well, one more thing. I'm gonna turn it over to our legal staff, Tanner, and to give you the commission an update on a previous case. That we have a particular veterinarian that has multiple violations and cases against him. So we just want to give y'all an update on where we're at with an older case. Go ahead, Tanner.
Thank you, Patrick. So I was tasked by Kara Tharp a few months ago before she left to follow up on an old complaint, docket number 2019-20 and docket number 2022-04. This was way back in the vet medical board days, and there was an opinion that was reached by the board. And in the finding on that opinion, the respondent was found, and two of these cases were lumped together in one opinion. Respondent was found to have not kept proper records when he was examining Lucy, the cat, who had been spayed and had some urinary issues. They claimed that there were x-rays taken and different things done for this particular cat, and the records were a little bit off on that one. So that was one of the complaints, and it had 2 charges of its own as well on top of that. The second complaint that was reviewed by the board at this hearing, and this was a full hearing in which there was an opinion issued and penalties charged and given to this one particular doctor. Complaint 2, there was a 10-week-old kitten named Simba, was going in there for a neutering and declawing operation. Long story short, Simba was not neutered, and in lieu of being neutered at this particular doctor's location, somehow he as a result of this, Simba the cat had a very injured and very torn to pieces anus. And these sorts of facts here are not necessarily relevant to the complaint, and this is not a complaint that's being presented before the commission right now on recommendation of the committee. On May of 2022, this opinion was issued and penalties were presented upon this one doctor. Respondent was ordered to complete an extra 10 hours of continuing education record keeping within 6 months of the date of the order, to submit to the board 6 records of medical cases per month for 24 months from June of 2022 to June of this year. That would be 24 months, and 2 civil penalty charges of $5,000 apiece. So to simplify, he was supposed to complete an extra 10 hours of continuing education in record keeping, pay $10,000 for those 2 civil penalties, and provide medical records for 6 medical records per month for 24 months. This was appealed through the Administrative Procedures Act judicial review on June 7th of 2022, and former staff of the legal department here and the Department of Agriculture timely filed cross appeals and an answer to those complaints. The case was not followed up upon by respondent, and nothing happened on this case until July 12th of 2023, last year, when Judge Kara Connors of the Court of Appeals issued a notice of a Rule 41 dismissal. It's a dismissal without prejudice, meaning that when this is dismissed, you still technically have a chance to bring forward this appeal again. Well, had 2 weeks from this notice, and when the 2 weeks came, there was no further action taken and no further appeal. And if you interpret the statute for judicial review liberally, if you give him another 30 days after that August 7th dismissal, he would have had another 30 days, September 7th, 2023, give or take business days, and whether or not that fell on a weekend, I don't quite remember. Regardless, 30 days for that appeal is up. So this case and this order issued by the medical board and all 4 penalties that were placed upon this one veterinarian are still active, and this one veterinarian cannot appeal any further because we're well past the statute of limitations. So from this one case and looking into it, the commission, and following up on this, has the right, the normal process, as we've done the past several meetings here, is to have a complaint written, sent to the Veterinary Medical Examining Committee to figure out the facts of what's going on and get a veterinarian's perspective. And they've been doing a good job of that. But there's also a secondary aspect and a secondary requirement and way that the commission can enforce these veterinarian penalties, in that you can have a motion of the commission itself. This case had already gone before the board and there was already a hearing on it. And through this past legislative session, any sort of decisions by the board are decisions by the commission that can be enforced by the commission, by you all, should you decide to do so. And we bring this for you here because the case has already been decided as to the veterinarian specialty and the veterinarian special facts of medical practice. It's been reviewed by the experts who know the standard of care in these certain situations. What we're dealing with now here is non-compliance of an order of the commission. It was an order of the board, now it's an order of the commission, because it's y'all's responsibility to follow up on this from your own motion. So the commission from 17-101-305-A-18 can deny, suspend, or revoke the license of any veterinarian for failure to comply with a subpoena, but it finishes this one provision in subsection 18 or an order of the commission. That means that if there's non-compliance on this, which there seemingly has been non-compliance on this, there doesn't look to be any sort of additional 10 hours per renewal basis on this, and there hasn't been any newer records submitted. I have reached out to this one doctor and his counsel to provide us payment and continue compliance, or to start compliance with the provisions of this within 30 days. I sent that and it got to the doctor on February 15th. No response has been given or come to me from counsel or the veterinarian himself. So we've tried to follow up on this to go through the normal channels and routes. I'm presenting this to the commission here because we do need to follow up on this. We do need an enforcement action. This was seemingly a pretty egregious case here, and the board thought it was enough to slap these penalties on this one veterinarian. And now the commission has the responsibility of enforcing it further rather than us trying to chase things down and trying to pester this guy to give us the medical records, give us the additional hours and all that. So there's two different ways you can do this. You can increase penalties through the normal means, either deny, suspend, or revoke this one doctor's license, or impose an additional civil penalty to the ones he's not already not paying. And that's route number one. Route number two, this could also be considered grounds for another case to be brought against this one veterinarian. When you apply for licensure renewal for a veterinarian, there are three options on this renewal in Section 5, asking if during the previous calendar year you were charged with a felony or subject to disciplinary action of this board, or currently subject to any criminal proceedings or licensure or regulatory investigations. This case was still going on in the year 2023. It was still going on in the year 2022. And a lot of these letters that I'd sent and these dismissals had been sent to this one veterinarian and his counsel prior to him applying for renewal, and he checked no on both of these. The commission also, on top of being able to enforce non-compliance of this order from 2022, may also enforce, see, the statute says fraud, misrepresentation, or deception in obtaining a license or permit. And this is a licensure renewal. This doctor had checked no on investigations or disciplinary actions that were live and active. And he not only had, most likely not only had constructive knowledge, but most likely actual knowledge of what's going on. I sent the letter by certified mail, and I made sure that his counsel had a copy of this. And so I'm presenting this to the commission here to vote on whether to have a hearing on this issue and to enforce the penalties that you all see fit.
Thank you, Tanner. I do have a question. I know we just are going through license renewal for veterinarians in the state of Arkansas. Was his license granted renewal in this current renewal cycle?
I believe it was granted renewal in this renewal cycle, which makes the fraud, misrepresentation, or deception charge the only, and the hearing to follow up on that, the only way that we could enforce that at this point in time, because he has already been renewed. At least that's my reading of the statute on this. If it was something that had been noticed or caught at the front end, it might have been just denied on that. I guess he still could file for a hearing or request a hearing under the APA. But regardless, we're at a point here, a lot of this I'm following up on, making sure that we do get these notices out and these letters out to this one doctor and his counsel that he is in noncompliance from the records that we have. At a hearing, he can present whatever evidence he wants to that he has complied. But from what we have, there's not a whole lot of evidence that he's complied, or that there was any sort of stay on this, any sort of stay of the enforcement of this. There might be an implied stay, but even if there was, it's been a long time since August 7th, 2023.
So you're asking about having a hearing? Is that what you're suggesting? Like a face-to-face hearing?
Correct.
That is, if the commission, and of course I, as legal counsel, I want to straddle the line of advising that there's been non-compliance on an order here and did my job on that, and not trying to sway y'all either way. But this case, since it is not being followed up upon and a hearing's been had on 2 civil penalties of $10,000 and those haven't been paid, and compliance has not been done on supplying medical records or having the continuing education to turn that in, then it is up to y'all as to what you see fit. And I may leave this up to the veterinarians maybe that are here today to suggest a hearing, maybe advised that this is a wise decision to suggest one on this. Of course, I don't want to suggest penalties or sway y'all either way, but something does have to happen on this in order to enforce it, because we've reached out, we've tried to follow up on this, and we haven't gotten any sort of answer.
I just, my opinion is, look, the veterinarians on this call, I'm positive that we do everything by the book, and if we make a mistake, we own it. And my opinion, if he's been accused and penalties assessed, and he hasn't done anything, we need to do the next step. And if that's a hearing, that's a hearing, but that's not fair for everybody else.
I think the question I have for you, Tanner, is, so in my opinion, additional fines aren't going to do anything in this situation. He's already ignored those to begin with. So is there an opportunity? Can we suspend a license pending a hearing? Do we have anything that, or is, if we want to take action, is the action that we take hearing, or is the action that we take suspension, or both? As I wrote it down, you had denial, suspension, revoke a license, you had additional fines, and then a grounds for a hearing based on his renewal. But I may have written those possibilities out incorrectly.
Let me, if I could, share my screen, because I've got the statute here. Where screen one and share. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, upon written complaint by any person or on the Arkansas Livestock and Poultry Commission's own motion, and after notice and hearing as prescribed in the Arkansas Administrative Procedure Act, the Commission may deny, suspend for a definite period, revoke the license of any veterinarian, or impose a civil penalty for, that's the fraud statute for the second way that we could follow up on this on his application. But the first one, failure to comply with any subpoena dis tectum, or an order of the commission, which an order of the board is now an order of the commission here on this. So after notice and hearing as prescribed in APA. So any sort of denial, suspension for a definite period, or revocation of a license must be done after notice and hearing as prescribed in the Arkansas Administrative Procedure Act. That's the process in which we deny, suspend, or revoke a license. Or
so was the hearing that happened previously count as that hearing, or would there need to be an additional hearing?
So since my reading of the statute, since there's now an alleged noncompliance of an order of the commission, then there needs to be a second hearing to hear the evidence for and against this one particular doctor being non-compliant of an order of the commission.
Very good.
Under the APA.
And can that hearing take into account both the fraud on getting a license as well as not responding to the subpoena, or would those need to be two separate hearings?
So there's a little bit of precedence in this case itself, because this one order does contain the charges and the facts of two different complaints on this one particular doctor. And two of the charges are for complaint number one, two of the charges are complaint number two. In this, the facts of this case are going to weigh upon both alleged violations. So non-compliance over the order, that's on its own. Second one here, it would be a separate issue, a separate docket number, but you'd use potentially factual evidence to show for or against that this one doctor did or did not act with fraud, misrepresentation, or deception in obtaining a license. So if we present a certified letter to this person saying that it was received on a certain date, that's evidence there as part of number one that could carry over to number two. Point being, we could lump this into one hearing day, just like this first order was that is allegedly being non-compliant.
So let me try to paraphrase what you said and just make sure that I understand. We could, if we as a commission wanted to, issue a notice of hearing, and we could include both the fraud, misrepresentation, deception of obtaining a license, as well as non-compliance with the subpoena.
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairperson, I would recommend that we offer a notice and hearing for this particular case as a follow-up to dockets 2019-20 and 2019-22. And that in that hearing, we have the 2 points around, one, the non-compliance with the previous subpoena, as well as the fraud and misrepresentation on obtaining his current license renewal.
I second that motion.
The motion's been made by Dr. Throne, second by Bruce Malik. Patrick, did you guys get the motion recorded correctly?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the motion at hand? If not, hold on. That is a notice of hearing.
It's okay for Dr. Throne to make that motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is a motion for a public hearing to hear the cases that's already been established. And
Good
another
clarification, Dr. Palone.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this will be before the full commission and not just the veterinary committee, correct?
That's correct.
But Sarah,
Bill,
let me make sure that this is a notice of hearing, but you're not proposing that we do anything with his license before the hearing.
I don't think we can.
Yeah, my understanding is we can't until after that hearing happens. Is that correct, Tanner?
Yeah, that's correct. The only time you can do anything, as far as suspending a license is after the hearing itself.
Okay. I'm not a very good veterinarian nor lawyer, so.
Just for my knowledge, how was this? I hope I can ask this. How was this vet notified of the previous recommendations or previous corrective actions? Was it certified mail? Was it?
So when the order was initially filed by the board back in May of 2022, it would have been a certified mail to the veterinarian and to his counsel on these penalties. And we know that they knew because they filed an appeal on June 7th of that same year. Same thing with the notice of dismissal from the Court of Appeals from that judge. The notice and the actual dismissal would have been sent via certified mail. I sent a letter by certified mail notifying that if there was no compliance within 30 days or the start of compliance within 30 days, then this would be presented before the commission to take action on this.
So do all orders when they're filed and sent to the veterinarian? You said this was sent to his counsel as well. Is that standard operating procedures or is that?
If it's an official, in my mind, to play it safe, sending a copy to counsel and to the respondent, him or herself, is the right way to do it. With an actual decision, with an actual order of a commission or a body. I used to do a lot of work comp litigation before I got this job here, and we would always get a copy, typically by email before we get it by mail, right before the client would get it. And the work comp commission makes sure that they send out as many copies of this. Counsel is entitled to a copy of any decision on any sort of case that they represent any sort of client on, and what they represent the client for. And so the order would have been sent from the board. I wasn't here then. I don't know who sent it, but it would have been sent to counsel. Same thing with the dismissal from the Court of Appeals. That would have been the Court of Appeals purview, but I assume they sent certified mail to both folks on that. Then, if not, then their complaint is with the Arkansas Court of Appeals, not with the Livestock and Poultry Commission.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, if counsel had not already been involved in something, how did you know who they were to send it to?
There was previous cases on this particular veterinarian beforehand. There's a reason why counsel was involved. And then since that time, we've had multiple cases filed against him this year. So he's had counsel with him for, I know, prior to this case we're discussing now.
Gotcha.
Tanner, has he had his license renewed on more than one occasion since he's had these penalties levied against him? And my question, I guess, has he fraudulently represented himself on an application for a license renewal more than once?
I'd have to look at the 2023 renewal. I don't have a copy of that. I have the copy of the most recent one.
Yeah.
And that's one I thought about here. And I did think about this as I was talking out loud, that we could, as additional evidence, to take a look at what the renewal is on 2023. What we do know for sure is that there's been a renewal here in 24. But I'm trying to think. I would think that'd be another count of potential fraud, misrepresentation, or deception in obtaining a license or a permit. If my intuition in the reading of the statute, in my mind, if we're counting one renewal and check the box on one renewal as one case of fraud, misrepresentation, or deception in obtaining a license or permit, then one last year from 2023 would be another instance of that, and it would have to be another docket on that.
But still all within one hearing. I would check that. And then, but I'd try to get all the charges and the notice prepared as soon as we can and get a hearing date that works for all of us.
Okay, so we've got like I said, we got a motion on the floor for a public hearing, made by Dr. Throne, a second by Bruce Malik. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed, none opposed. I'm not sure what's up next, Patrick. You may have to help me.
Old business.
Okay. Any old business to bring before the commission? And if not, do we have any new business to bring for the commission? If not, then next meeting, that'll be the around the Cattlemen's Convention. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That'll be the last weekend of July. I'm thinking maybe the 26th. I'm trying to get approval on that right now, but that's where we intend to have it.
Okay.
So I think Friday's on the 26th.
That's correct.
And that's generally when we'll have it, is the Friday before.
Where will that be?
That'll be in Hot Springs.
So tentatively, our next meeting will be July 26th on a Friday. We have a preferred time.
Okay.
We didn't get that very clear, Tyler. Can you speak?
I don't know what happened there, but do we have a next meeting will be July 26th tentatively? Do we have a time?
No, we don't. It just kind of depends on how they lay out their, programs. So we'll just have to get back with you on that one.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys. I sure appreciate you guys' time. I know it's been a long one. But nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Motion been made. Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Do you want me to say something, Senator Hill, Representative Vaught, about
Recording stopped.
about that bill? Sure.
Hill and Vault mainly, Missy probably, for sure.
How about I do Hill and Vaught and somebody else do Missy? I'm just kidding. She's a buddy. No, I will.
Yeah, those would be the ones who are more concerned about it.